So good afternoon, and thank you for joining this overview of the value-added service available to schools using the Cognitive Abilities Test, CAT4, as a result of GL Assessment's collaboration with the Fisher Family Trust, or FFT. We're delighted to welcome schools from across the ISA, an association with which we enjoy a great relationship as a gold preferred supplier of assessment materials to its schools. For those of you that I've not previously spoken with, my name's Andy Small. I oversee provision of GL assessments, tests and surveys to schools in the independent sector, having spent 16 years in schools myself as a teacher and a middle leader. Also on the call are colleagues from the business who will be able to support you with any technical queries should you have them during the call. Please indicate any such requirement through the Q&A function of the platform, into which I'd also encourage you to add any questions that you might have as we go through today's content. I'll be happy to consider these at the end of the session, which should last, I think, approximately 20 to 30 minutes or so. GL and FFT have been working increasingly closely in recent years on a number of product developments and projects, and we're pleased that this opportunity for more rigorous value-added information is available to schools. For clarity, the value-added service is included with any purchase of CAT4 or a package subscription. As I will go on to explain, for those schools using CAT4 and taking students through to GCSE, GCSE, IB Diploma and or A-level, the only additional commitment is a small amount of time sharing examinations data. We'll look at that shortly. So I'll provide this afternoon an overview of the service, and as I say, I'll be happy to take questions too. For your information, we are recording this meeting for the purpose of sharing it with you all afterwards, and also with other colleagues who would have liked to attend today but aren't able to do so due to other commitments. The focus of most of my slides today is the GCSE service, but we will briefly also consider our A-level and International Baccalaureate Diploma level services. The absence of end of Key Stage 2 SATS data for many students in the sector means that an alternative to Progress 8 is required for independent schools, of course, with more schools than ever now using CAT4, an associated service to evaluate the progress students make across Key Stages 3, 4, and now 5 has become increasingly important. Using CAT4 as its baseline, the Fisher Family Trust calculates an expected grade for each student, for each subject, ultimately giving rise to a differential at the point at which GCSE outcomes are known. Other services might refer to this as the residual value. Data can be used from any CAT4 test level, provided that the assessment was completed before the beginning of a student's time in year 11 for the GCSE service. Traditionally, it would be at the start of a student's time at the school in year 7 or year 9, but it doesn't mean that we can't use data from year 10, for example. Different to how GL assessment calculates its indicated grades in CAT4 reports, FFT adds in extra information from across the 4 discrete CAT4 batteries, as well as making subtle additional adjustments relating to students' genders and months of birth, where we know that summer-born students make greater progress than those born in the autumn, for example, across Key Stages 3 and 4. Without in any way wishing to simplify the work that's completed at FFT, the table on screen now shows how the overall average value-added score for a cohort of just 3 students would be calculated. The inputs used give rise to different estimated results, and the differential provides a value-added score per student, per subject. The average of these positive and negative values can be seen in the bottom right-hand side of the screen. For those schools considering historical data, or that from GCSEs, for example, there's a simple conversion that's used to equate lettered and numbered grades. The value-added service portal provides a range of instantly available dynamic dashboards, tables, and charts, each of which can be exported as required. School student and subject level dashboards exist, such that schools may analyze their data in multiple ways, each with fully interactive tables and graphical representations. An overall summary of the data included within the dashboard should allow schools to quickly identify if anything appears to be missing. Key metrics like a student count, matched Cat 4 data, the average number of examination entries, and the like will hopefully add reassurance to schools needing to know that every available piece of data has been included. Summaries of attainment and progress appear in the form of tables and charts, giving comparisons with averages across England's wider school population and also against those other schools signed up to the service. As the use of the value-added service grows further, refinements to these comparison metrics will be possible, and perhaps, who knows, even to the extent of being able to one day provide an ISA-specific benchmark, for example. The interactive tables and charts allow schools to analyse student groups according to gender, overall Cat 4 mean, and verbal reasoning abilities. And that makes an analysis of those different demographics nice and simple. I have a message in the chat asking if the slides should be changing. If they're not, that's a bit of a problem. I wonder, Sheena and Hannah, can you confirm that the slides have been moving, please?
Yeah, the slides seem to be changing for us.
They do.
Yeah.
So there are some graphs at the moment around student groups, and they're like, great, thank you. I'll carry on then. The next slide should be a scatter plot. Everyone loves a scatter plot. And the analytics dashboards include access to comparisons between expected and achieved grades for overall averages for English and for maths, and again, allowing for the analysis of different groups of student within that. Within the student level dashboard, each of the columns is fully sortable to allow for easy comparisons. A detailed view per student gives subject level information for each young person too. For schools with historical Cat 4 data and associated GCSE data, we can produce trend reports, and that will allow you to analyse changes in those sort of key metrics over time, over up to a 5-year period. And these, again, are available in both tabular and graphical formats. Any school not yet using the service that would find value in such trend reports can simply upload that historical data to gain access to this detail immediately. The GL and FFT Value-Added Service can also provide all of this reporting at a school group level as well, such that it's easy to consider data across a family of schools. Now, the calculations associated with value-added are, of course, they're reliant upon the Fisher Family Trust having sufficient confidence in the data that they hold. And so currently we've got 21 subjects for which we can report a VA measure at GCSE. As the available data set becomes greater, so too will the number of subjects that are included. But forgive us for the fact that maybe some more obscure subjects we don't have sufficient data to be able to report on. Feedback from schools using the service is that having subject level information in these tables and charts has been really valuable for them when looking at examples of best practice within their school and considering sort of overall student outcomes. And I'm conscious that so far I've really only focused on the GCSE service, but as I referenced earlier, this academic year we have extended the service to include an A-level service as well as dashboards for the International Baccalaureate Diploma level. Here you can see some of the tables and charts associated with the former, the A-level service. You can see there's consistency across the piece. And then for the IB Diploma level service, we've got a point system that's used such that can provide meaningful comparisons between standard and higher levels as well. So how does it work in practice? So schools sign up to the value-added service with a couple of clicks of a mouse button. And we'll ensure that that information relating to how to do that is included with the webinar recording. On the last slide, there are some links, and you'll get that through the recording and the sharing of the slides in the next day or two via email. In signing up, schools provide consent for GL assessment to share students' Cat 4 data with the Fisher Family Trust, and schools also agree to provide examinations data themselves via FFT secure platform after results day. Just to be clear, the baseline data for both the GCSE and IB services is Cat 4 data. However, we know that the best indicator of A-level outcomes is ultimately a student's GCSE performance, and therefore it's that's used for the purposes of baselining young people for the A-level service. We don't want to conflate the two things at all and complicate things. Use of the A-level service remains, though, available only to Cat 4 customer schools, but there's no use of Cat 4 data in the A-level dashboards, essentially. Of course, it would be slightly remiss of me not to add in a hopefully increasingly small caveats about the nature of results from recent years, as the effects of national lockdowns and associated school closures remain at least of some relevance, perhaps. For that reason, we'd always advocate that schools consider their data in that light, and ideally with the added context of multiple years data, if that were possible. And so in terms of next steps, it may be that we have some schools represented on the call that already make use of Cat 4 assessments. If this is a service that any such schools would like to be a part of, then the links on the slide deck at the moment, and again, it will be shared with you, they link to the relevant data consent forms. Alternatively, you should feel free to contact me directly, such that I can liaise with our team on your behalf. For those schools that would be new to assessing with Cat 4, I'll be very happy to offer you the opportunity to trial that assessment with a sample of students if you'd like, at no cost. Whilst I recognise that those schools who don't use Cat 4 wouldn't necessarily benefit immediately from the value-added service, it may be the case that you soon could. So do use the contact details on screen to indicate your interest in any such free trial, or in fact, to discuss any other aspect of your school's assessment needs and assessment cycle. GL assessment offers tests of students' underlying abilities, but also levels of attainment, attitudes to learning, well-being, as well as having a wide portfolio of assessments relating to the identification of barriers to learning and potential SEND. So I'll be very happy to talk with you and share information around any of that. So do take note of my contact details if you think that would be helpful to you. And that, I suppose, in a nutshell, is the value-added service. And there don't appear to be any specific questions at the moment. If anybody does have any questions about anything you've seen or heard, then do feel free to pop them in the Q&A. Do have perhaps a couple of additional, okay, yeah, one coming in. What data is used if students sit Cat 4 more than once during their time at the school? That's a really, really relevant question. So in terms of student, I mean, a lot of schools would assess students on entry and then perhaps again at the start of Key Stage 4, for example, or even Key Stage 5. If students, for example, have sat the Cat 4 assessment in Year 7 and also in Year 9 or 10, then we would seek to use the earlier data if that were consistent with your needs. I think there could be some liaison with the school around that, but generally speaking, schools would look to measure their added value from point of entry to the examinations point. So that's what we would look to do. Is support available to schools using the service? Yeah, I mean, GL assessment sort of prides itself on its availability of its customer support, and I personally came out of the classroom into an assessment insights team, a team of people to support schools with making sort of best use of their data. The value-added service is no different really, insofar as we have a dedicated team of people who work with the FFT and on the value-added service, so they'd be available to answer questions and provide support as and when it were needed. In what format do we share exams data? In terms of the upload to the portal, the Fisher Family Trust provides a template into which data can be, examinations data can be entered, keeping it all in that sort of one place and hopefully making the process a fairly simple one. So yeah, there's a template provided for that, but I've spent a bit of time over the last half term checking in with schools who are already using the service, and feedback from them around the processes is generally very positive, and the dashboards as well seem to be ticking the right boxes, so we're fairly confident.
And we've had one more question come through asking, can you confirm costing?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. You can just see that one come in. So the cost of the value-added service is straightforward. The cost of the value-added service is nothing. The value-added service is an inclusive part of a school's purchase of Cat 4 or any package that includes Cat 4. The Cat 4 assessment itself, the pricing may change over the summer, but the digital Cat 4 product can be purchased at a cost of £11.25 plus VAT per student, and that will include access to the value-added service dashboards at the point at which those students then go on to complete statutory examination. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, but there don't appear to be any additional questions coming through. So I don't think we need to take up any more of anybody's time, but we will make sure that the links that are on screen now are shared with you in the coming days. Also the webinar recording, such that you can go back and check anything that you wanted to. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And please do get in touch if you've got any further questions. Hope you enjoy a lovely evening and what remains of the summer term. Thanks very much.